Lesson 256.
A haircut. It was time for a haircut. Lenny didn't even have to look in the mirror. Even though he was going bald, he knew that he needed to cut his hair every 2 weeks. He had a tongue of hair on the top of his head. His hair was thinning at the crown. He still had plenty of hair on the sides and back. It was what they call salt and pepper, a mixture of gray hair and dark brown hair. It was only a few years, he figured, until the salt and pepper became just salt. He never let his hair grow for more than 2 weeks. The longer it got, the worse it looked, he thought. He spread a newspaper over the bathroom sink so that no hair went down the drain. He plugged in the clippers and started cutting his hair. He started at the back of his head, went to the sides, and finished on the top. Every minute or so, he had to clean the hair out of the blades with an old toothbrush. Finished, he picked up a hand mirror to check out the back of his head. Everything looked okay. He carried the newspaper back out to the kitchen and shook the hair clippings into the trash can. Then he took a shower.
Lesson 257.
Jack was a young sailor. He lived in England, but he was often away with his ship. One summer he came back from a long voyage and found new neighbors near his mother's house. They had a pretty daughter, and Jack soon loved her very much. He said to her, "My next voyage will begin in a few days' time, Gloria. I love you, and I'll marry you when I come back. I'll think about you all the time, and I'll write to you and send you a present from every port." Jack's first port was Freetown in Africa, and he sent Gloria a parrot from there. It spoke 5 languages. When Jack's ship reached Australia, there was a letter from Gloria. It said, "Thank you for the parrot, Jack. It tasted much better than a chicken."
Lesson 258.
Fanny and Ethel worked in the same office, and they were neighbors at home. Fanny was rather a careless girl, and she often lost things. Then she usually went to Ethel to borrow more from her. Ethel was a kind girl, but she sometimes got tired of lending things to her friend. One Saturday afternoon Fanny knocked at Ethel's front door, and when Ethel came to open it, Fanny said to her, "Oh, hello, Ethel. Please lend me a bag. I've lost mine. I'm going to the shops, and I feel very stupid when I haven't got anything in my hand when I go to the street." Ethel laughed and answered, "Well, Fanny, go down to the end of the garden. You'll find a nice wheelbarrow in the shed there. Take it when you go down to the shops. Then you'll have something in both of your hands."
Lesson 259.
Dave married, and when his new wife saw the clothes in his cupboard, she said, "Dave, you have only got one good shirt. The others are very old, and they've got holes in them. I'm going to buy you a new one this afternoon." Dave liked his shirts, but he loved his wife too, so he said, "All right, Beryl, but please don't throw any of the old ones away." Dave went to work, and when he came back in the evening, Beryl said to him, "Look, Dave, I've bought you a nice shirt. Here it is. Put it on." Dave put the shirt on, and then he said, "Look at the sleeves, Beryl. They're too long." "That's all right," Beryl answered. "They'll get shorter when I wash the shirt." Then Dave said, "But the neck's too small, Dot." "That's all right," Beryl answered. "It'll get bigger when you wear the shirt, Dave."
Lesson 260.
Mrs. Williams lived in a small street in London, and now she had a new neighbor. Her name was Mrs. Briggs, and she talked a lot about her expensive furniture, her beautiful carpets, and her new kitchen. "Do you know," she said to Mrs. Williams one day, "I've got a new dishwasher. It washes the plates and glasses and knives and forks beautifully." "Oh," Mrs. Williams answered, "and does it dry them and put them in the cupboard too?" Mrs. Briggs was surprised. "Well," she answered, "the things in the machine are dry after an hour, but it doesn't put them away, of course." "I've had a dishwasher for 12.5 years, Mrs. Williams said. "Oh," Mrs. Briggs answered. And does yours put the things in the cupboard when it has washed them? She laughed nastily. Yes, he does, Mrs. Williams answered. He dries the dishes and puts them away.